Good morning. Good morning. Hey, there we go. Hi, Pat. We are in Buffalo, New York, actually, / Niagara Falls, 37th Annual CALLERLAB Convention. This is Tuesday, the 30th of March. This is the Advanced Choreography Interest Session, and we welcome you. It'll be myself, John Marshall, and our other panelist, Michael Maltenfort. Hello, Barry, from Chicago, and we are glad you're here. We hope to share some ideas on choreography with you. We hope to maybe demonstrate a few things. We may have to move some furniture, but we can do that. But Michael and I have a number of things that we wanted to share. We've talked about this a bit. Just to get a feel for the room, how many folks in the room do not currently call advanced? Anyone? Okay. So you all are considering doing that. Okay. Hi there. No problem.
Come on in. Play seats.
No, timing's everything. Even at advanced. Was this something we said? I understand. If you're not flying to Chicago, now would be a good time to get off the plane, right? There you go. Thank you. Boy, I thought they'd never leave. Come right on in. Hi, Rich. I guess I did start just a little sooner than I should have. Whatever. We'll let you know later.
Yeah, right.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. As always in the panels, and you know this by now, if you have questions or comments, we'll ask you to do that on the microphone. It would appear they are recording. At least the machines are here to do so. They don't always say yes. I'll have to ask the question again since we've had some new folks come in the room. Anyone in the room who's not already told us who is not currently calling advanced? Okay. All right. Very good. I asked the question because one of my bones that I like to get out of the way early in terms of advanced, I believe advanced has a different philosophy about square dancing from the previous programs. I've been calling advanced long enough that we didn't have program lists for advanced. It's always part and parcel of advanced is all position dancing. I believe you should never see a flyer or an advertisement that says advanced DBD. It's redundant. It is redundant. And trust me when I tell you, I see that from time to time. We are, if you will pardon the term, we are bastardizing the program. It's not just a collection of vocabulary. It never has been. It's always been more, and it should be more. People talk about the rush to plus. We now begin to see the rush to advanced. And that's a mistake. I'd much rather see as leaders that we spend more time working with good plus and good mainstream and allowing the dancers to dance those programs with multiple positions. You notice how I said that? Multiple positions. Come on in now, find a spot. And I meant it that way because all position dancing, in my view, is a bit of a misnomer. Most of you in here are already calling advanced and positional advanced because I know some of you. And you know spots where you can put the dancers in the room to do calls like wheel and deal that they're going to crash and burn, no matter how strong they think they are at plus, because they don't see them or hear them. Multiple positions. All positions, not necessarily the smartest thing. We used to say that. I'll teach them all position right from the get-go. And generally we didn't really mean all, So I say multiple positions. And I think that's important to keep in mind. But that holds people in their programs longer. If people are in the program longer and they're having fun, they enjoy what they're doing, you're keeping them interested by doing your homework, and that's what really the bugaboo is. It's the amount of homework that any of us have time to actually realistically spend in from our regular lives, being able to keep it interesting. It's always been much easier to just say, well, geez, I didn't have any time this week. I'm going to go get that A2 call, and I'll use it at the Plus Club just for tonight, or the A1 call, whatever. And we end up bleeding that down. We don't keep it necessarily, but we might have been spending that time on helping the dancers learn how to do a split circulate from a column instead of something off of another program. So it does take time, and I understand that, but I think we would have dancers staying longer in plus. Same thing's true at mainstream. It is all relative in terms of judgment. What do you think is too hard a position at mainstream or plus for a given application, given call rather? So I leave that part in your hands, but Ed Foote has always said the first thing you have to do when you teach an advanced class is reteach plus.
Not to mention mainstream.
Yeah, well, frankly, there's a lot of truth in that because a lot of callers have taught and dancers have been comfortable with vocabulary. And that's okay. It's a place for that. But not at advanced. So I would like to see us hold the line where possible, on advanced so that it means something different. That's a leadership responsibility. Density of calling at any program. Every one of you would go to a mainstream dance or a plus dance, and you would expect to hear one mainstream call after another. You should be able to expect to hear follow your neighbor, spread, explode the wave, three-quarter tag the line, so on, so on, so on at plus. But all of a sudden we see folks coming into the advanced program, and it's follow your neighbor and spread and centers trade and recycle and veer left, crossover circulate. There's an advanced call, right? Chain down the line, bend the line, load the boat, pass through, wheel and deal, spread, touch a quarter, transfer the call. That's not an advanced dance. Obviously I don't expect every single call in a sequence to be an advanced call. And I'm sometimes guilty of over density, at any given program of calling perhaps stacked too many of those particular calls. So I try to be careful about that. But I'd rather be that way in the advanced world than the other way, because the other way is misleading dancers into thinking they're dancing truly plus, rather truly advanced, and they're not. Not as I perceive advanced and as advanced has been for a long time. So, maintain some integrity of the program. I think that's important, and I just wanted to get that out of the way early. Michael, do you want to add anything at that point?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think part of the advantage of doing exactly what John's saying is people may be less likely to rush through the levels. If they realize that mainstream is a wonderful level, maybe they don't need to go to plus immediately. And mainstream is a wonderful level. And in my area, you wouldn't know it. Because the people who dance at mainstream tips, they don't dance well because the upper level dancers just don't want to do it. And so the floor level is very bad, and it's a self-reinforcing thing. The dancing is bad, so the calling can't be very interesting. And on the other hand, it can be a self-perpetuating good cycle if the dancers are going a little more slowly and the choreography gets more interesting because the dancers can handle it because they're not rushing on. And, we've got people who dance C1 in our club who still don't reliably dance AC-doocy from parallel ocean waves. That kills me. Just kills me.
The word dance didn't go away just because we went to advanced. Dance is still critical, and they should be able to dance call to call to call. It is not call, stop, look, identify, evaluate, and then next call. And when you're teaching and when you are calling regularly for folks, you need to not present in such a way that they expect and are trained to stop after every call and figure out where they are. Right? You, number one, need to know where they're going to be before you call that call in the first place. Otherwise, you don't know what you're going to call next. Right? So that's a very key issue. And there should be a continuity of flow of motion, of thought for the dancers. Good body flow and good timing will actually make them much more successful. But many times I'm seeing dancers that are being trained to stop almost after every call. In some cases, it's because the caller wasn't sure what he wants to call next. So, of course, they have to stop because they're waiting on the caller. Others, callers find themselves having to stop because the dancers are lost. They never got there. Now, that can happen with any floor, any time, any sequence. But it shouldn't be happening all the time. It shouldn't become the de facto way of, quote, dancing at any program. I mean, that is actually a constant. It should be all the way through. Now, some of you know I do also call challenge. There's a number of you in the room who call challenge. There are challenge applications as we get higher and higher, or even certain positions that we ask the dancers in advance that are hard enough that they do need an opportunity to evaluate where they are. And we can give them that time, but there should still be a high percentage of dance and flow. And you can make any of those programs actually dance. And I know Barry in the room, Barry Plasswork calls C4, and I've seen him call C4, and I've seen C4 dancers dance the material. They dance. Wind in your face is still good at any program. Now, yeah, there's some different philosophies as you move through, and in some cases there are a certain amount of puzzles that need to be solved, and that's something that that particular audience is desirous of, and it has its place. For those who do C1, interlocking blocks is not a flowing, gracious, it's a puzzle. So we need to balance that, in my opinion. There are some callers who call nothing but puzzle, but they shouldn't have to wait to do trade circulate followed by an AC-doocy, they shouldn't have to stop after every call. And it's up to you in your presentations and what you give as an expectation to the dancer. When you're calling it Mainstream and Plus or teaching those programs at the beginning, you're giving them the definitions, and then you're giving them a cue, and then you're giving them helper words, and then you begin to take those crutches, those supports away a little at a time to where they're cueing themselves in their head, and then eventually they get the muscle memory and so on, and they move through and they can dance that. The same thing's true at advanced. You need to carry it that way to let them build, but then eventually take away the crutches, so that they're actually truly dancing. They're not, I know the word I want, well, I'm thinking of cue, dancing to cues only, Well, spoon feeding is one way to think of it. That'll work, Eric. That works. But if they have to wait for the cue or the definition for every call, then they don't know it. And they're not going to learn it until you begin to take some of that away from them, some of the crutches away, to make them learn it and develop on their own to become actually dancers at that program. Michael?
The only other thing I'd add is I've certainly danced to or seen tips called by callers whose philosophy is if it's advanced or challenge calling, well, it doesn't have to flow. It doesn't have, it can be jerky. But it's like, we're not here to. Flow is just as important, and there's so much more to think about. Just because as callers, there's so many more possibilities available and motions that we're taking, and we know what the flow of recycle is, but are we aware of other things of overflow and so forth? But those things don't go away, and they're just as important because it's all about dancer enjoyment, and it's not fun to dance in ways that you're being jerked around on the floor physically in bad flow and things like that. And keep thinking about that. And I guess that's especially true of people who are calling in areas where there's not a lot of opportunity for those people to be dancing those level callers who are calling a level that they don't dance very much. And sometimes that's a necessity because there's just not a lot of opportunity to dance it. But I guess dance it where as much as you can and keep thinking about those things.
The point I would like to make, especially to people who are new to coming into calling advanced, and I could say this in any one of the rooms. If you're new to calling mainstream, if you're new to calling, dancers are not live checkers. They're not live dolls. They're dancers, and they're there to dance. They're not there for you to become educated on how to move people from one spot to another. You have that responsibility going in the door before you get there, to not treat them that way. And I've seen that done a lot, and it's not fair. If you're in a learning situation, brand new to the program, and the dancers you're calling for and you're learning with, and they understand that, some of that is fine. But for the most part, don't treat them like checkers. And probably my last bugaboo, and I'll get it out of the way, and I promise I won't stay on the soapbox terribly long about this, but when you're learning new calls and working in a new program, leave your computer closed push the checkers or dolls, whichever you use, but use that. Don't just put a program on the screen that gives you a choice of calls from that program and it shows me where I started and where I end. There are a couple programs that do show some of the flow and action, but there is in my opinion, a kinesthetic value in actually moving the checkers through the pattern of the call. Right? You're seeing how each dancer is having to move, and that's going to help you with your body flow and help you learn what the call does much better than being able to type this thing in and go, bing, bing, you know. What was the term, Barry? Clueless clicking? Clueless clicking, yeah. And there are, because of the programs, there are people who, you know, will take a booking because, well, fine, yeah, I can do an hour of dance for you at your event or whatever. And they open up the program and they work out these sequences. Well, they don't work them out at all. They click in there. The computers don't offer you body flow. That's your responsibility, whether it's on a computer or otherwise. But I think it's very important to be doing that, to push the checkers through. That's just one of my things. I prefer people at any program, if they're brand new callers especially, actually. And some of us are old enough to remember when we didn't even use checkers. We would diagram. We would physically diagram every spot, every step where you went. You know. And so here's what square through 2 starts here. You do this, so you diagram, and that's where it ends. Checkers are way quicker. Computers are quicker still, but I think there's a downside to that. So enough there.
I never thought about checkers as a technology.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. Well, actually, you know, but we've advanced beyond that now because we use sugar packets, you know, because we've got the blue ones and the pink ones and the yellow ones, and we're good to go. You know, it's like, yeah. How many wait staff have you made crazy because they come walking by and you've drawn noses on them sometimes too, and then you put them back in the bowl. You know? Don't you wonder what the people think who come behind you? You know, so like you have some examples I'd like you to share. Do you want a square on the floor for these?
Maybe not at the beginning.
Okay.
I
know that I'm going to do a square.
Sure. Yeah, let's get a square. Can we
make some space and build a square? We'll demonstrate some ideas to share with you. As you read in the write-up, the idea here was to share with you ideas of different types of positions that the dancers could be successful with that might cause you to have brainstorms of your own, to become a little more interested and think about things a little bit differently. Hopefully we'll have some stuff to show you that is, in fact, a little different. We'll also have opportunity for you to share your ideas.
It just feels weird sitting down and having a square in front, so I think I have to stand up for this. Okay, I'm guessing that this is the head wall. So heads past the ocean. Extend the tag. So one of the pet peeves that I have, or not really a pet peeve so much as I think it's underused in general, is the ocean wave rule. So square through 3. Trade by. It's one of those things, swing through. It's one of those things where a lot of squares will struggle with it, and I think a lot of us are probably reluctant to call it. I think that it's one of it doesn't go that far because the dancers aren't used to it, so we don't call it. So the dancer. On the other hand, it feels very much like explode when you do a square through 3, and we all recognize that explode and square through, or left square through 2, which is exactly what a square through 3 would be, works out very nicely. So everyone square chain through. Feels a lot like an explode at the beginning. So it's both a pet peeve about mainstream calling, because the first was a mainstream call, but there's something where this is certainly an extended application. This is certainly not something you throw at any old advanced floor. Let's half tag, but thinking about the ocean wave rule gives you a lot of possibilities, and of course you can have them rear back and for greater success, and sort of build to it. But I think that this is great stuff because it dances well if the dancers know what they're doing. And so if you're working with a group, if you're looking to do some workshops, there's a lot of places you can go. So I know that some people do other things in terms of the ocean wave rules, so everyone pass and roll. So here we're working in your box of 4. And of course we can do any sort of a... oh, go ahead.
I was just going to comment. Perfectly appropriate use, but do you often call pass and roll from parallel ocean waves? Do you often say, do you often and have great success mostly anywhere you go? Because most people will find that a bit of a floor bump in that. Even if you put an all-8 circulate in front of it, they're not looking for it because an awful lot of dancers still think the first part of pass and roll is a pass-through, and they don't think about doing pass-through from ocean waves, parallel waves especially. Tidal waves, yeah, they'll pass through for you. But it's good. I've also called from this type of thing an all-8 circulate into a square through. And, of course, what happens is they have to reevaluate after the first pull by on the first hand of that square through. And anytime we ask them to reevaluate, it's harder.
Yeah, I like those examples only because if you have dancers that know what they're doing, it dances really well. I mean, it's good choreography. The problem is that people don't know it. But on the other hand, maybe this is a direction where if you have dancers who've been dancing advanced for 15 years, okay, this is maybe some place to expand because it's not jerky choreography. It's not bad choreography. It's just choreography they don't necessarily know how to do well. Or another example, pass through, spin the windmill right. It works pretty well. I could have said extend, but, it just makes it a little more challenging. I think there was a question, though.
You had a comment or question? Hang on.
Please.
He's going to bring the microphone to you. And as always, identify yourselves, where you're from.
Sydney Marshall from Rochester, New York. I was just saying you'd probably have higher success if you didn't – you're sitting here with a wave, everybody stopped, and then you called square through. On the other hand, if you were in motion, it might have better success rate.
Okay. Let me, if you don't mind, I'll carry on with Michael's same idea with this one thing. Could I have you do a half tag the line, please? And if you would, lock it. You may have more success starting this way the first couple times you try it. If you were from here to call the square through or a square chain through from here, you'll probably have a little bit more success of people turning in the proper direction after that first pull by. Also, this is a type of a position from where I might actually start on a split basis and then on the third hand start your square chain through or your, that type of thing, split square through, but on the, or a square through, but on the third hand, everybody square chain through. Bringing them to this point, however, for the square chain through, it's just a different approach. It's a different geographic feel to the dancer, and it is a little harder. But if you started there and then came around to the parallel waves, that type of thing, how many times have we've asked dancers to do a right and left through from parallel waves? And if they're in motion and moving, they pull by, and what do the centers do? They work with the people in front of them instead of the people next to them. So, this is a kind of thing on that same line. So you might want to think about that on a somewhat creative basis. Everybody explode that wave, please. The wave, yeah. Partner tag. Bend the line. Right. I said misspoke. Everybody pass through and the ends bend. Okay. So from here, let's do this as a varietal idea you might build up to and start split square through. On the third hand, the new center 4 square chain through, and the others load the boat, just so they're not standing around taking notes and so on. All right, good. All right. Yeah, well, he's being creative. Right, there you go. Right. So
confusing.
That's a different starting spot. It still carries into exactly what Michael's talking about. Let's use those ocean waves differently. Go ahead, Mike. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. Past the center. The centers spin the top. Just one more along the same lines. Split square through 4. And this is something that a lot of people do, but some people, don't see very often, using the ocean wave rule on a split square through, where they were in a wave. So, trade by, left swing through. And don't forget these. Left square chain through. Yep. Yeah. Good. So, how do I want? Yeah, right roll to a wave. Mix each wave, of course. Yeah, sorry about the fact that there isn't quite enough room for the square. Left square chain through. Yeah, and as John was cueing me, there's great dancers, much more dancer success from there. Similarly on the pass and roll, you can do it from columns if you feel like it. So, and on the other hand, to make things easy, let's have the center swing through. To make things easy, don't make all 8 people do it. So cross, clover, and square chain the top. Square chain through, excuse me. So you give only 4 people to do it, they're not going to start working with the cloverleaf people. So,
yeah. And it's a good point, building up to these things. So just having the center wave start and doing things they're not used to doing, it's a good building process, and I think that's good. Was everybody on track when Michael referenced the idea of pass and roll from the column? Because, okay, we had a request to see that. I don't blame you. You want to show them, Michael?
Sure. Touch a quarter. Split counter rotate. Circulate. Each box of 4, which is certainly what I would say on an actual floor, pass and roll. It's tight though, especially in this room. But
it's tight, and the other thing you can pretty much anticipate is going to happen is your number 3 in the column, the dancer closest center who's looking in. They're not going to want to do their right roll initially. They're going to step forward and try to do an arm turn with the other dancer coming from the other side. Eric, microphone, please. And sorry, we don't have 3 mics, but that's very hard. And I would expect there to be a lot of trouble. I would not call that cold and expect a typical A2 floor to dance it well, or even a C1 floor to dance it smoothly first time out.
So the thing with pass and roll, which is what I consider important, is a 4-dancer movement. And most often we think of it as an 8-dancer movement because we see it as a whole square doing it. Here we show really where it had to be a 4-dancer movement. I use pass and roll a lot in my 2-couple workshops because I always do 2-couple in front of my advanced workshops, and I start out and I use pass and roll as part of that. People always balk the first time because they don't think of pass and roll being done in a 2-couple situation, but it's easily done, just like you saw here. So the important thing is the mind shift. It's not an 8, like a lot of calls like Motivate, and those are 8-dancer calls, whereas pass and roll really is just a 4-dancer call.
Thank you. In fact, can I have the square right where you are? Everybody's single wheel. Now you can do your pass and roll. However, after the first pass, the 2 people coming to the very center are still going to want to try to turn through with each other. Initial instinct, even though that and they'll learn not to. But again, this also emphasizes Eric's point. It's a 4-person call from here, and that some people actually will teach from here to begin with, so that people get that sense of it being a 4-person call working in that same grouping. Barry, you had your hand up. My point? Okay. Well, you were busy. Okay, go, Michael. Keep going.
What's that? Left touch a quarter?
Or
triple trade?
Or right touch a quarter, or...
Yes,
yeah,
I did.
Yeah.
Oh, that wasn't an either or.
Keep going, you're fine.
Okay. Yeah, left turn through. Left turn through. Wasn't paying attention very close to the hand.
How many people call left turn through on a regular basis at any dance? Robert, you raise your hand to everything. You must call them all at every dance. I'm impressed. Mm-hmm. It is one of those underused things. We don't think about using it, and we should, but we don't. And what could you follow it with? Well, a left chase might not be bad. Left half tag, depending on where you're starting from. But yeah, it's underused as well. Okay.
Yeah. Along those lines, speaking, I'm a big fan of left hands. Wheel around, just because it's an underused call.
Well, good. They all went left. Very good.
Yes. Yeah. No. Yeah. Well, square through 4. Left roll to a wave. It seems to me that left roll to wave is a pretty underused call, and it works really nicely after you've done a left turn through or after you've done something ending in, what's that? Left roll to wave. I got you. I didn't understand what you were asking for. That's a totally different thing. But
let's spend a moment on that.
Yeah, I was going to say, but that might have gone a little fast. But right roll to wave we're all used to. Double pass through, right roll to wave, whatever. And if you don't mind, it's not leads right roll to a wave. But I think a lot of us aren't quite comfortable calling a lot of left roll to a wave. And so if you think of it, okay, after you're using your left hand, that's often a good way to turn. So after a square through 2, after a square through 4, after a square chain through, because it ends with a left turn through, or anything having a left turn through in it, are good ways to, use the whole list, which includes left roll to a wave, and yet isn't particularly awkward at all.
Well, and of course, there's always our ever popular roll when you have that opportunity, or face left. Do a left turn through. Well, we know we can't roll after left turn through because they're stepping straight ahead, but they can face left, and that'll still feel as a flowing action to them because there's some part of us that has not quite stopped internally in our emotions, so that would feel a natural thing, but we don't tend to say it. We don't tend to say face left afterward, and as simple as that is, we don't tend to do it. But I wanted to come back to Rich's point that he was making for us. If you would have each wave lock it. Okay. That's right. There you go. Yeah. Well, and it's not only from a left-handed, either right-handed or a left-handed wave. It gets a little hairy. Do a split counter rotate, please. Okay. There you go. Now, left roll to a wave. Twice. Now, everybody do a left-hand hinge, please. Okay. Let's talk about this for a second. Watch what happens. Do your first left roll to a wave. All right, we do it, please. All right, we've done our left roll to a wave. We've established the wave. The dancers are thinking wave. They're looking for a wave call more often than not. They're looking for whatever you might want to get away with from here, whether it be an explode the wave, a left spin the top, whatever. There's a bazillion things we can do. But they're thinking wave. They're not thinking box. They're not thinking lead or trailer generally. So when we say to do it twice or ask for it again, they have to reevaluate.
Yeah, before I know you were going to call it a second time, I just wanted to point out something to talk to the dancers about, and it's even true here. Be aware of your square breathing. Those are pretty big. That's a pretty big gap between those waves there, and that's part of what makes the second left roll to wave hard. And if the waves breathe in, on a lot of floors, the two waves would be even further apart. But even here, the breathing wasn't great, and that's what makes the second one hard.
One second, we have a dual situation here too to keep in mind. This is doubly hard because it's also left, right? But it is equally hard. Maybe not quite equally hard, but it is hard to do right roll to a wave twice because they have to reevaluate to the leader-trailer relationship and the box of 4 instead of thinking about the wave that they just created. And even the name of the call makes them think wave because it's left roll to a wave, and now they're thinking wave, and you suddenly want to continue working in a box of 4. And so anytime we ask dancers to reevaluate, it's harder. It raises the degree of difficulty, and on top of that, we've asked them to do it left-handed, which is also not as common. Rich had his hand up, and then Eric.
I personally believe on the square breathing. It's nice when you're teaching, but I believe the square breathing should happen at the next call, meaning not do a call and then mush the square and then do another call and then breathe. It's just like, in my mind, it becomes a blending action of the next call, meaning I really don't like when people breathe after each call.
Okay. Eric?
This is hard for 3 reasons, not 2. 3, because 1, you have left roll to a wave, makes it hard. 2, because you're doing it from waves. And 3rd, because the left roll from here is more awkward than doing a right roll. The body flow from here much easier is for a right roll, with the peeling away action. Left roll to a wave from here is going to be somewhat awkward because there's a lot of spreading apart and switching and getting in there. Right roll to a wave will drop in a lot quicker.
I think we can agree to disagree on that. I think they're equally hard for the same reason, but I think, is everybody comfortable when Michael and Eric are using, and Rich, we're using the term square breathing? Are we all okay with that? Because it is a factor that affects flow and motion and timing to the next call as the square moves. And so I've had dancers, callers say to me, well, I've never heard that term. I've never used that. I've never used square breathing. Well, trade the wave, please. One of the first places that we need to become aware of square breathing would be a spin the top. When you do a spin the top and it's half right, left, 3/4, and that end dancer who's after the swing half, the end dancer looking in has to move up to the center spot. There's not enough room in there. The square breathes out to accommodate. Right? And that's where square breathing comes in. And this is one of those examples. Sometimes the calls, it's not just a matter of not enough room. Sometimes it's too much room, which was part of the point that was being made there. They come far enough apart that it's even harder to identify and react to the next call.
And also, square breathing, sure, it comes in and spin the top, but also comes in if it's something that you talk to your dancers about. And, well, this wouldn't be Rich, but that's okay. If it's something you talk to your dancers about, it comes as early as heads promenade half outside. Okay, what are the sides doing? They're breathing in during the call, and that's also breathing. It happens. Day one of lessons. So, as long as we're on the subject, not of square breathing, but of the right rolls. Let's split counter rotate, circulate, single wheel, pass through. Sorry about the fact that there's a small room. So, right roll to a wave 3 times. And they did a great job. But one of the go to the right, it helps. But it's tough because, of course, some people are walking forward and some people are turning. Oftentimes, everyone wants to turn. And I also made it more difficult by saying 3 times as opposed to giving it to them one at a time. And it all depends on what you're looking for in your floor as to which one you might want to use.
Yeah. And that's a really valid point. If I ask somebody to do such and such 3 times, it's way harder than if I say quarter through, quarter through, quarter through. Quarter through 3 times is a whole lot harder to process, even though it's the same thing. And so some of the examples that you're seeing here are pretty straightforward. Others are quite a bit more difficult, and we're looking at, I guess, cautioning to make sure you build the dancers up to some of this stuff and don't just expect them to fall right into it. It's like, oh, of course, we get that all the time. Apparently, if you're dancing to Robert, you do, but otherwise, I'm picking on you, Robert, just because you're in a different time zone. Oh, he wants to say something good. I figured if I kept poking the bear,
Okay, Robert Hurst from England. Yes, I agree with you, John. That is tough, but I don't know who it was, but someone was counting it. 1, 2, 3. And as a caller, we can help the dancers by counting it. 1, 2, 3. And also, you can give the dancers that little bit of extra time, just so that they got the thinking time to know where they're going, and then as soon as it's finished, off for the next call. But.
And I've heard Robert call, so don't misunderstand what he just said. He doesn't mean he lets the dancer stop after every call. That's not what he means. That's not how he calls. We had talked about that before you came in the room, Robert, about stopping after every call, reevaluating and going. But some things are hard enough that we do have to allow the dancers an extra beat here and there. They sometimes need that, and we want them to be successful with it. You have some more examples, I think, over there, I can tell.
Yeah. Okay. Why don't you guys square your sets? Well, don't ask me.
Yeah, that's why we don't remember. That's why he said it. We don't remember either.
So, everyone knows all 4 couples right and left through. Please don't bother. But there's so much that can be done, all 4 couples, all 8. It's another thing that in my mind is like the square through or square chain through from a wave that I started by showing you, which is it's good choreography. It flows well. It works well. However, the dancers don't know it. So it's got a degree of difficulty and something that if you want to work with a group on an ongoing basis might be something you want to build if it's something that you care about. But some of the stuff works really well. Some things, again, I guess the facing couples rule, sometimes everyone doesn't think of. So all 4 couples swing through. So you got to pass your corner, and then you step to your wave, and you're doing your all 8 swing through. And I had to say all 4 couples because they're working along the outside at the beginning. From here, if I called it again, it would be an all 8 swing through. What's that? Nice biggie. Exactly. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, sure. Go ahead, right enough grand as long as you're there. What's that? Yeah, John. Yeah, John was just saying, I bet you wouldn't call all 4 couples square chain through. Although the funny thing was, just
from crossing waves.
Oh, oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, I was traveling with my partner, and he had just learned advanced and was really sort of a little panicky about the all 4 couple stuff. And I was like, okay, we went over a couple things. Just because he didn't want to make any mistakes. He was one of these perfectionists. But I told him, you're probably not going to see that much of it. First advanced call out of the caller's mouth was all 4 couples left square chain through. Not kidding. And he was doing fine, but the square, of course, broke down because he could hold his own, which is more than most of the rest of the dancers in that square could do. All 4 couples spin the top. Again, everyone's so used to all 8 spin the top, but you're not necessarily thinking about, did the outsides move up a quarter? Okay, yep. Outside should have moved up a quarter while the centers went 3/4. Okay, good. So there's a lot of things. Boys run, bend the line. So everyone's very used to all 8 spin the top. After all, it's a plus call as opposed to advanced. But all 4 couples certainly gives it a very different twist when you're doing it from a squared up set position. Oh, there's a comment.
This is probably minor trivia, but I believe there's a difference between all 8 spin the top and all 8 spin the top. In the case of all 8 spin the top, you're being precise about how you move up. All 8 spin the top is a plus call to just sort of keep going up until you run into somebody.
I'm not sure I buy that theory. Do I also have to say all 4 couples? Pause. Spin the top. I don't know. That's interesting. So you're thinking of the pause as the advanced version, I guess. I can't argue with that totally. Why don't you show your great wave?
The all 4 couple stuff. This is an idea that came from Dave Clay in England, who would love to have been here this year. He couldn't get here, but he'll be along next year, I suspect. So often we're just great upset, and what do we do right from ground zero? It's like all 4 couples this or all 4 couples that. And and you wouldn't use it every time, but occasionally he had a very nice way of leading into all 4 couples from a flow standpoint that I certainly had never thought of. Walk around your corner, please. Seesaw. All 4 couples right and left through. It just dances nicely. It's smooth, it has them working in a good direction, and we were fine except for the call issue part. We did the all 4 couple thing. It was good, but the point of that was simply just a different way to lead into it that you don't always see, and that has some value unless you also, of course, can get involved and face your partner left turn through, and and go from there. But anyway, it was just one thing I wanted to share because I just thought it was kind of nice to see it danced as a lead-in instead of from ground zero.
When right. Should we do it again?
Yeah, do it again. He doesn't believe it.
Walk around your corner. Seesaw. All 4 couples right and left through. Pass, pull, pass, turn.
And this is exactly what you'd see on the floor, I think. I had never heard of this until John shared it with me a week or 2 ago. I thought it was great. But it definitely increases the level of difficulty. First of all, you're talking about advanced dancers who might not have seesawed in, a year and a half, unless they're angeling in the basic classes. But second of all, there is a level of disorientation. It's great motion, and it's probably worth doing because it'll take your floors some work. Maybe we'll continue on some of this stuff. All 4 couples pass through. By the way, for greater dancing success, I might have said all 4 couples right pull by or square through 1, just because that extra hand doesn't. It makes it probably better than the right shoulder, left shoulder, because which is what you get. Boys run right. All 8 scoot back. The biggest problem I see on this is people not wanting to go far enough on the star. You guys, of course, did a great job. But, remind dancers the things that they might not have thought about if they're not callers and if they don't dance higher levels. About scoot back, you come back to the same person. For some mainstream dancers, that's a revelation. And even at advanced, maybe they haven't really thought it through. That's fine, but that certainly is a piece of information that can help a lot here. All 8... okay. Well, let's do one other first. All for the tape, Rich was like, all 8 pass and roll from here? Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, technically it's legal, but it's hard.
All 8 follow your neighbor. And again, it helps to know that you come back to the same person. That's
a really, really good point. Because it's not a problem for the out-facers, obviously. It's the in-facers, and how far is 3/4? Because to get in to do it, they step into the square, and they feel like they've already gone their first quarter turn. That's just what it feels like. So that becomes a very tricky aspect right there that he was showing you. Have they gone far enough or not, or too far? They think they've gone a quarter turn just by stepping to the center of the square, when in fact they've not.
Yeah, and by the way, everyone hinge. Those standing in the side position scoot back. And this is what I might do if people absolutely don't see it. Oh, yeah. Oh, I do end up with the same person, and that's what you're doing on the all 4 couples business. Yeah. So, well, we'll give it a try. See how we're.
You want to get them all with the same hand, or do you?
We're still the arrangement's okay. Yeah. No, that's not where we were going. All 8 scoot and weave. That's a left scoot. Yep. And finish the scoot. That's a right weave. Great. Yeah.
Who are you?
Bob Pointer, Florida. What I was thinking about, do a left hinge. And from here you could do an all 8 left quarter through. Mm-hmm. Do a left quarter through. All 8. And I do that a lot. Mm-hmm. Just wanted to make a point so that others could see that you get. There's a lot of all 8 stuff you can do from the formations. Mm-hmm. And it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, including a remake. Wait. Microphones, please. And we'll let you go, and then Robert will come to you.
Just an idea, Ulrich Brand from Germany. I think now we have set up where are the boys, just for information. Okay, same-sex diamond circulate.
All the same sexes, not just the boys.
That's just a hint and just an idea I do often when I play with diamonds on A.
Okay. Did everybody see that? Did everybody recognize what just happened? Okay. If I was working dancers up to it so they could see it, I might do them one gender at a time. Boys, raise your hand. All right. The 4 boys have a diamond. You have 2 boys close to the center and 2 boys on the outside, and they have a facing diamond that exists for them. Absolutely. A facing diamond helps because they can see it. All right. So if they would do their action, girls, don't lose track of who you are and where you are. Boys do a facing diamond circulate. Right. Girls, you do a facing diamond circulate. And so what you have here are facing diamond circulates. They're crossing. You have to know who's the center of the diamond, who's the point of the diamond. Doing it same sex is critical so that they can see it. There are some other applications you could learn to do that don't rely on that, but then, of course, it creates a much harder aspect. So if we do it all at the same time, from here, do an all 8 facing diamond circulate. But then this is hard stuff. I mean, this is not, plain run-of-the-mill for sure. Robert was next. We need a microphone for him, and Eric's next. And he wants to comment on that very thing.
I just wanted to say, for those who this might have, the setup might be a difficult thing. The reason that we're able to do this, the boys are some of the boys are centers, some of the boys are outsides, and the reason that happened is that I did have the side position do the scoot back. So not everyone might have realized, how do we get into this, or this is not a usual VAR, and that's why we're here.
Okay, Robert Hurst. Can I have the wave face in the side wall swing through? And everybody hinge. This is just a technical question. I've got all the boys facing in. If I wanted the boys to cross, is that an all 8 cross?
Yeah, if you wanted, for example, to say all 8 hinge and cross.
No, just from here, cross.
Yeah. I would say and cross. I wouldn't just say cross. Yeah. Yeah, you need to say the all 8 so that they know they're working through the center.
It was a box standard hinge. It's not an all 8 hinge. So it's just hinge, then you want
all 8 and
all 8 cross.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hinge and all 8 cross.
Yes.
Although there's only 4 people working.
Mm-hmm. I'll pass it behind you to Eric.
Eric Hennerlaw, Court of Madera, California. Actually, I'm looking for a teaching hint. Now, if anybody has any particular helping teaching, have the square here hinge. Okay, so when I'm teaching and trying to workshop all 8 switch the wave from here, I have a very hard time with getting those end dancers to make a right-hand star going across because they want to flip in with a left-hand star. Does anybody have any particular teaching hints that work to really get them to learn that right-hand star going across? Does anybody understand the question? Okay, so have the square do all 8 switch the wave.
Run, Rich.
See, and she did exactly what most dancers do, is they want to put a left hand in there.
Yeah. All right, 2 things. If you would, have all the boys run. Okay, so here's where we're back in our crossing wave situation. Again, on a teaching hint, number 1, I'd do 1 wave at a time to show them first, which is kind of building again to that. Michael won't blow his own horn, but I will. For him, he came up with a neat idea that he shared with Sandy, and who in turn shared it with me, and I've been telling everybody that I know. It doesn't have to do with all 8; it has to do with switch. And you want to tell the story, or I'll tell it.
Go ahead.
Sandy Bryan was filling in for Michael. Well, it gets better than that. All right, Sandy's filling in for Michael at his advanced class. She goes in, she's calling along, she gets to switch, and she says, "Switch the wave." And everybody in the room says, "Partner!" And Sandy's like, "What the heck was that?" Because they all shouted it out. As Michael has pointed out and taught the rest of us, every switch is in relation to partner. As long as you know who your partner is in an ocean wave, you go toward your partner. Doesn't matter if it's right or left, you go toward your partner. And it works every time. Because then we see dancers that mix up switch and mix quite often in the learning process earlier on. It's so obvious. Only none of us saw it until Michael brought it up. Never heard that before or seen it before. So this is a great idea, as far as switch just in general. Everybody works towards their partner on the action. That gets them all moving in the right direction. So that's one thing. I was planning to bring that out if you hadn't.
I should forgot about that. I'll say one other thing. What I was always cueing with that particular advanced class was go towards partner, look for 2-face lines. Because then switch to a diamond became go towards partner, look for a diamond. So go towards partner, look for. And, of course I'd cut the cues later, but that was a nice way to get there, I thought.
I think it's neat. And, I've never heard anybody else use it before. If you're in a left-handed wave, it starts them all in the proper direction. Now, going back to the all 8 that Eric's asking about specifically, your observation that we have that problem is absolutely correct. I see that a great deal. When I've done them from here, I've had to do the same thing. I've had to remind them or ask them whether it be switch the wave or switch to a diamond. But you have a little more success, I find, on switch to a diamond because they're not going quite as far. And what I might do when I'm teaching is ask the end dancers, in this case it's our girls, to be looking where the halfway across the square point is. Where's halfway across the square from you? There's a wall on your right. You're going to be facing that wall. All right, if we were doing switch to a diamond. So I might start with actually switch to a diamond, which is antithetical, but thinking that's harder than switch the wave. But in this case, I think it's easier than switch the wave. So if we have that end dancer, you're going to end up facing the wall that's on your right. You're going halfway over across the square to face the wall that's on your right. All 8 switch to a diamond. All right. So that takes them that far. Boys, run right again, please. All right. All 8 slip. This time, end dancers, instead of going halfway over, you're going to go all the way over, and you're going to be facing the wall that's now behind you. If you're in a round room, this doesn't work. So all 8 switch to the wave. So you're going to be going now. Of course, obviously, we've got expert dancers here, and we've led up to it, but that might be an approach that I would offer. We have a hand up in one of our dancers. Let them answer because they have it right, and then we'll move on to other people. Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment that I could tell from being in the square that much the same thing is going on as with a scoot back. You're starting from a right hand hold, and you're asking to use the right hand again to do that cast in the center. Mm-hmm. So being aware of that may help.
And who are you?
I'm sorry, Guy Steele, Lexington, Massachusetts.
Okay, thank you, Guy. We had another hand. Did we not? No? Okay, I thought we had someone else for comment.
Well, since you said that, can you demonstrate your teaching for that switch the wave, that partner thing?
Yeah, which would not even need to be in all 8. It would just be from parallels. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's just have those facing the side walls just step out for a moment, just because one wave is enough. You guys, if you're facing head wall, you're good. Let's have the others. Those girls trade, and those girls run. And those boys trade. So. I'd certainly teach it by the definition, and this is something that I stuck in afterwards, but soon afterwards, the timing would be something along the lines of switch the wave, go towards partner, look for your two-faced lines. And if you start off walking towards partner, and you know where you're heading in terms of a final formation, you're pretty much going to get there. By the way, something else to think about, boys, just in the wave, two-faced line. Actually, let's have the girls U-turn back. I'd rather have a wave, I think. Boys cross-run. So, of course, they did it, which is more than I can say for a lot of other floors. This is good mainstream that's worth knowing because it's, these are advanced dancers. They should be able to have ends cross-run. If you review that in parallel ocean waves, that's something you'll probably want to remember when it comes time for the all 8 switch the wave. Oh. Because the ends are doing a cross-run. But we don't really think that hard about ends cross-run. If they've been doing some ends cross-run, the all 8 switch the wave probably works better for those ends.
We're right there, Barry. The idea of who's your partner in a wave situation, that is not in debate from advanced on, and hasn't really been in debate below that because it's just kind of gone away because nobody could, they wouldn't agree and so on. But from advanced on, you can ask any of the experienced advanced and challenge callers, your partner in a wave is the end and the adjacent dancer. Okay? Don't get into a big fight about it. Don't debate it. That's what it is. If you accept that and go forward, you're fine, and teach your advanced dancers that going in as well. Right? That's who it is. And so when I said before, if you know who your partner is in a wave, right? Once they know that, the switch idea that Michael presented of helping your new advanced dancers, thinking partner, saying partner out loud, etc., gets them all started in the right direction, whether it be a right hand or a left hand. Barry Hesper. Yeah.
Barry Clasper from Toronto. I particularly like this method of teaching switch, in which everybody did it, because when you move on to C1, the restrictions on switch are lifted, and now you don't have to switch the wave. You can switch any general line. And dancers that have been taught with the notion that if it starts with a trade, automatically have an advantage because they know which way they're going to start moving. And it's particularly confusing at C1 because there's another call called cross roll to a wave, which has an almost inverse action to switch. So once the dancers have heard both of those, if they haven't learned this trick with switch, that switch starts like a trade, then they just get totally confused between the two calls. So I think this is an excellent method. We should write that up as some sort of a teaching tip somewhere so that people start doing it in a general way.
Is the square all right? You guys have been up a long time. Do you want to stay up longer? Okay, we can do that. All right.
Go ahead. I was trying to think of something. I was going to say something.
So make it square up, please. That's moving. It's like everybody drift home,
I remember. We don't need to dance this, but that was on the tip of my mind. Most of us know that from waves, swing and slither is equivalent to a switch the wave. That's certainly a degree of difficulty that doing it all 8 does work, but requires. It's just something that might be interesting, all 8 swing and slither, especially if you say them quickly, because otherwise all 8 slither is pretty awful. But there's one case where all 8 slither really pretty much works, and it's a little bit gimmicky, but there it is.
Part of what we were charged to do was look at and exploring some additional ideas of things you might want to do that the floor generally can be comfortable with, and that you can maybe add some additional interest. And these panels are fun because they always feed on themselves. You folks all bring ideas, and we explore those at the same time. I have a penchant. Sure, go ahead, please.
Heads past the ocean.
I have a penchant for letting Michael do it all. If possible.
Extend the tag. Hinge. All 8 circulate once and a half. Dodge the chair. So, first of all, in general, all 8 circulate once and a half. You can get into your quarter tops and so forth. 3/4 top. Half a top. And I started these with by having the boys face what the boys were facing in, and if the boys are facing in, or the boys are facing out, or the boys are together, in other words, anything except 0 or half waves, you have some easy ways of getting out. If you're sight calling and you're sort of not sure where you want to go, you do a couple quarter tops. Centers run, bend the line, all join hands and circle left. And regardless, you can stop circling for a minute, regardless of whether the boys were facing in, out, or together at one end or the other, anything except 0 or 1/2 waves, at this point, boys up to the middle and back. They're together. And that makes it really easy to, if you're doing some sight calling and want to do some tops that do not lead into a right and left grand or something like that, the boys will always be together after you do a couple tops and centers run, bend the line, circle left. Nice. No, go ahead.
Square set, please. I have a bit of a penchant for using what I refer to as triples, doing calls 3 times in a row without overflow, which is important, and certainly without reverse flow. But the idea here is that in doing some triples, it promotes square cooperation because it takes everybody to be involved and to work in conjunction with one another. It also is a great way to get them to practice a call if they're new to the level. It is also a way of having some positional interest. It changes things. Some of them don't, but it gives you also, getting triples gives dancers in a program, new to a program, a sense of actual dancing the program. Feeling like they are, in fact, we're getting it. We're actually doing it. Let's have the heads pair off, please. And step to a wave. Quarter through. Quarter through. Quarter through. Now, new box each time. First quarter through, they're in a new wave. Next time, we reevaluate. It's the next box of 4. It's another quarter through. So, not a lot of changing going on, but continuous motion, one call to the next to the next. Saying it that way is easier than saying quarter through 3 times. Sometimes just as part of, if I'm entertaining with it, I might say quarter through, and as they're completing the first one, then say 3 times. And That gets their attention, and they carry through, and they do that. You can do it with 3/4 through. There's a number of calls you can do it with. But one of the ones that I like, and I think that can be fun, it's a little bit different. Everybody scoot and weave, please. Right. Good. So again, like the 1/4 through, the scoot and weave starts one way, puts you in a wave, makes the axis change. Now, if we did another scoot and weave, they're reevaluating to a new box of 4, scoot and weave. And scoot and weave. That's going to come up again in just a moment. I just wanted to give them an opportunity to go through the processes. Now, that's no big deal. From here, if you would please trade circulate or crossover circulate or any two of the above. All right, good. All right, now we know that of course that 1/4 through is a right hand rule call. And so if I was going to ask for a 1/4 through by design, the centers would have to start. I don't try to trick the dancers by suddenly saying 1/4 through, especially if they've been moving from a right hand into a left hand. Chances are they're going to do a left 1/4 through, even though I don't want one. So I might get them started, help them. I'll say centers 1/4 through just to get them started. And if you would please, centers 1/4 through. Okay. Now we have a facing diamond. Our definition of 1/4 through says 1/4 by the right, half by the left where you can. Now, most 1/4 throughs, you noticed everybody started, and then the centers did the second part. In this one, the centers start, and everybody finishes on the second part. So if you would, everybody 1/4 through. 1/4 right, half by the left where you can, so you're finishing with the ends. Lo and behold, we can do another one, starting with the right hand with the centers. Centers 1/4 through. 1/4 through. All right? All 8 circulate, because they wanted motion. 1/4 through 3 times. What's really funny about this is if you really want to, you can say 1/4 through till I get back. They can do it forever, right? Now, the idea here, though, is that they don't do a lot of 1/4 throughs from facing diamonds. They don't see that. That's not common, and it's usable. And you can build into the triple. You do 1, you do 2, you do 3, etc. And that's something that's just a little bit different and a little bit fun. And of course, you could do it left. And since Michael likes his left hand so much, you could start it from a right hand away where the centers have the left. So that works. Go ahead.
I was just going to say some variations that I was thinking. This works, the 1/4 through from diamonds, which people certainly do. People probably don't think about it, but works just as well from facing point-to-point diamonds. Yeah. So, just food for thought if you want.
I'll mark that one off.
What's that? Yeah. Yes, it's A1.
Yeah, A1.
Oh, from this formation, you mean, to get point-to-point diamonds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I understand what you're going for, Rich, and I might call split counter rotate before I call lock it from there. Right, fan the top would work from there too. So again, variations on themes, and that's how these things feed and look, and that's a good idea. But that's a very uncommon application, Rich. I think you'd agree to call a lock it from there. Mm-hmm. But
and choreographically, the 1/4 throughs, the scoot and weaves several times. If you think about sort of why it works, it's because it's changing the formation. It's changing a box of 4 into a wave, and that's why you keep doing it with different people as you go on. Which is why spin the top 3 times is incredibly boring.
I have 2 things to show real quick before we start to finish up. From here, if you would please, 1/4 through and slither. It's usually actually a very smooth combination.
And turn around when you get there.
To give Ken a break, he hasn't been dancing. He just jumped up, right? Absolutely. Have the ends run. That's you, Ken. Good. Right. Have the centers hinge. Okay. Right. Facing diamond circulate. Now you notice we have the facing diamond, but it's a left-hand center. So let's do this. Do a left 1/4 through and slither. Now you get the fun part. Chain down the line. There's plenty of body flow available to you to work from there. Boys, identify for me, please, real quick, if I'm remembering. Excellent. Pass through. Yes. Boys only passing through would have been rather difficult there since every boy was facing a girl. And wheel and deal, spread, touch a quarter, scoot and weave three, but I'll erase, reset. Transfer and.
Don't reset.
Right? Scoot and weave 3 times.
Oh, never seen that. Love that.
But after each one, but the idea, and again, I would expect to build up to that. But it is an interesting, and it includes all the aspects that we talked about, where you have different starting positions. It also gives you the opportunity for them to see it from different places. It gives you decent body flow and motion, and it's something to achieve. There's a strong sense of achievement from the dance floor when they get through that. And if you work it through, reverse engineer, or however you approach it, into a right and left grand, it's very cool.
Oh.
Yeah. So that's one.
By the way, just on that one, the scoot and weave from a quarter tag, something that some people call a lot, some dancers never see it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're writing choreography, interesting trivia, not necessarily useful, but interesting trivia, scoot and weave from a quarter tag gives you the same ending formation as if you did an extend scoot and weave.
Mm-hmm. And normally, again, we were kind of watching our time because we're coming up on coffee break, but I would have worked up to it. I would have started, showing them the scoot and weave from the quarter tag type approach. So that's a different one. And the comment was made about cast a shadow 3 times. I know that's been demonstrated at convention any number of times, and that moves well. But that's reevaluation. Right? First off, I'd like to thank the Square. Very, very much. We very much appreciate that. And they're stalwart folks. We have maybe 2 minutes if you have questions or comments. Henry? Thank you. Yes, sir.
Henry Grissett from California, Los Angeles. I was just curious. This also expands this allows you to expand your use of the plus in mainstream, right? Because when you had them in the parallel ways with normal girls in the center, boys on the end, with the boys facing in, girls facing out. Okay. Follow your neighbor 3 times, for instance. Something that you probably would not do at a plus dance unless you were sure that you had dancers who could do it. Mm-hmm. But where you could expect advanced dancers to do that. Is that correct?
Yeah, you could get anyone to do it. I would only caution you to take a look at the body flow on that for some of the folks. You might have a little reverse body flow concern in there, but as far as being able to do it triple, yes, you could technically do it. I guess we should caution everybody on the idea that because something is legitimate doesn't necessarily mean it's a good thing to call. It's not necessarily moral. So keep that in mind. Rich, you had a comment. We had to get a microphone over to Rich if we could. I
was just going to say on the doing your follow your neighbor 3 times, if you use it in a singing call and you see something like swing your corner, it can self-correct.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I see what you're saying. Anybody have anything else to share? I think we're in good shape. Thank you very much for coming in at 9 o'clock in the morning, and thank you to Michael Maltenfort. Great job. Thank you, guys. Have a good coffee break. Thanks.